There's a fairy tale from Chile that involves magical slut-shaming. Or I guess it's just actual slut-shaming, but it's done through magic. It's called Juan, Pedro, and Diego. There's a poor family that have 3 sons, Juan, Pedro, and Diego. One day Juan's like, Dad, I'm gonna go take our pears to sell in the city. And the dad's like, cool. So as he's driving a cart with these bags full of pears, this old man says, hey, what have you got in those sacks? Juan, who's either a smartass or just a jerk, says, they're full of shit. So the old man says, then shit they must be. He gets to the marketplace. The king wants to buy all of his pears, so his servants bring their best blankets to collect the pears, but when he opens up the bag and pours them out, it's just actually shit, because of strange old man magic. So the king has him tied to a stake and beaten with 100 strokes, and when he's finally able to mount his horse, he goes home in silence and nurses his wounds in bed. The next time Pedro goes, and the same thing happens, except he says the sacks are full of stones. The old man curses them to actually be stones. He gets beaten and goes home in shame. Finally, Diego goes, and when the old man talks to Diego, he says they are fine pears. Because he's nice to the old man not only doesn't transform his pears, but he gives him a gift. 2 gifts, actually. This vest that always has money in the pockets, and then he says, give me your right hand. And he makes it so that whatever Diego puts his right hand on and he asks it a question, it will speak to him, even if it's a tree. And it has to tell the truth. Diego thanks the man, he delivers the pears, the king's super happy with him, and over time he becomes this super rich, successful businessman with his money vest and his magic hand. In the meantime, his brothers left home to go be poor somewhere, ashamed, where no one knew them. So Diego decides to go find his brothers. So he goes to a new kingdom and goes to the king and says, hey, can I do some charity? And the king's like, whoa, no one's ever asked me that before. So Diego spends the whole day giving stuff away. He recognizes his brother Juan, even though Juan doesn't recognize him, make sure he gets lots of gold. And then that night, the king's like, I'm so impressed with you, you can marry one of my 3 daughters. Diego says, I will only marry one of your daughters if you let me sleep with her first, meaning actually sleep beside her and not touch her. And the king's like, all right, I trust you. So that night when they're asleep, he places his hand on the girl and he says, who has been here before? And she answers unconsciously without knowing, Don Juan the butcher. Meaning she's banged Don Juan the butcher. So Diego's like, I don't want to marry this girl. And so in the morning he just leaves and the king's like, well, that was rude. He goes to another kingdom and the same thing happens. He gives out charity. He sees his brother Pedro. He gets offered the king's daughter, says I have to sleep with her first. And that night he lays his hand on her and says, who's been here before? And guess who's been there? Don Juan the butcher. He gets around. He goes to a third kingdom. It happens again. And this night when he lays his hand on the girl, he says, who's been here before? And she says, nobody. I'm just as I was the day I was born. Which feels kind of yuck. I mean, it sort of points out the problems with purity culture, like this obsession with being with a girl who is like she was when she was a baby. So in the morning, he tells the king, I want to marry this one. They call for the priest. They have this amazing wedding celebration. Juan and Pedro even show up. They now know who he is, and they're happy and reunited and thankful for what he did for them. Well, the other 2 kings show up at this party with their daughters, and they are mad. They're like, why the hell did you not pick our daughters, and why did you ghost them in the morning? So Diego's like, fine, I'll tell you. He goes up to the girl, he touches her, and he says, who's been here before? And she says, you know, Don Juan the wandering butcher. And he's like, yeah, that's why I didn't want your skank daughter. And then he goes to the second one, and it's extra weird. He touches her chest, and then he doesn't hear a response. And so then he touches her rump. He says, little rump, little bump, why doesn't the chest speak? And the rump says, because it has an objection. So Diego smacked the girl and the objection flew out. Then he put his hand on her chest again and he says, who's been here before? And she says, Don Juan the butcher. It's strange little interlude. But he's like, ha, see, your daughter's a slut. And then he shows everyone how his new bride, you know, is a virgin and stuff. And everyone's like, woohoo, yay. The wedding celebration goes on. The other kings leave in shame. And I like that at least there's no mention of the girls being punished. I mean, they just got publicly shamed. But in some stories, I don't know, something worse would happen to them. So Diego and the girl live happily ever after, and he succeeds to the throne after her dad dies. The end. I love that Diego is nice to the old man. I don't love how disrespectful he is to the women. Yes, it is in keeping with the times, but I'd rather have a hero who cares about who they are and if they match personalities and if they get along, than like if Don Juan the Butcher got some, you know, before. Actually, I hope one of those other princesses runs off with Don Juan the Butcher. Maybe both of them. I don't know. If he made them happy. Actually, my favorite ending would be if his woman suddenly got the power with the hand and she was like, who's been here before, Diego? And then he has to like name a few people and she's like, I don't want this one.